Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining today's webinar. We're going to get started now. My name is Cumbrai and I'm part of the team here at Oxford Professional Education. And just a little bit of housekeeping. I would like to note that this webinar is being recorded. And today we have got another Oxford Exchange webinar hosted by Robyn, and she'll be covering 5 mistakes you're making with AI. So Robyn, I'll hand over to you now.
Thank you so much. And it's very ironic that we're talking about how wonderful tech is when tech literally let us down at the beginning of this webinar. Okay, so today we are talking all about the biggest 5 mistakes that we see that we are making with AI. And it's not just me. It's not just me that's telling you these are the 5 mistakes. This is from data that is collected in many, many spaces. So I want you to picture this. We're gonna take a moment in our glorious Monday. So picture this. We've got a deadline in 20 minutes. We open up ChatGPT. Yeah? We type out a quick prompt. We hit generate. The output comes back and it looks actually pretty good. It's well structured. It's confident, sounds like it knows what it is talking about. So we do a quick skim. Yeah, we start to read, we go, okay, this is all right. And we do a quick skim. We tweak a sentence, we tweak another sentence, and then we accept it. Yeah, does that sound familiar? And that moment where we skim, we tweak, and we send, that's actually where a lot of the AI mistakes are coming in. Not actually in the prompting, even though I will talk about prompting. It's not in the tool, even though I will talk about choosing the right tool. It's actually in the bit where we look at the output, decide it's good enough, and just trust it. Yeah? So I'm not doing an intro to AI today. I'm not going to talk about the fact that AI is coming for our jobs or anything like that. What I'm going to look at is 5 specific habits that are quietly making our AI use, our AI output weaker than it should be. And we're going to fix it. We're going to talk through those 5 things and fix it today. And I know that most of you in the room and those who watch it on replay, you are already using AI, or else you wouldn't be here, because this isn't like a 101 to AI. And I know the question isn't whether you are, we're now actually starting to question how well we're using it. Is it worth using? Are we using it in the right places that it was designed to be used in? Yeah, and that's the gap. That's the gap that I'm working to close with you today. So before we get into the mistakes, I want to set the context. Yeah, because use of AI is not the same as competence. And that is actually really different for us to try and get our head around when we're using technology. Because when we use Microsoft Word, that can be classed as usage there can be classed as competence. But when we actually use AI, anything AI powered, it's different. But even though we log in, even though we use it as a piece of technology, competence is different to usage in this type of technology. So we know, all of us, most of us as professionals, we're touching, AI is embedded in everything that we do. We see it weekly, daily, it's in the profiles, the platforms, the processes that we have had for years. Not because we have decided that necessarily, it's because the platforms themselves have upgraded to have AI-powered use. And that number has been climbing consistently, and it is not slowing down. Adoption is not the same as competence, though. And this is what actually sits on the other side of the really great data that we see. If I said to you, nearly 2/3 of over 5,000 professionals within one organization were asked how they use AI, and nearly 2/3 of those people have never once tested whether the output was actually accurate. Prompted, it looked good enough, they used it. That was their whole workflow. 1 in 3 have put AI-generated content into a client-facing document without checking it first. Not a draft, something that went out of the door, something that they shipped, something that they said was complete with their name on it. Yeah. So we have a profession that has kind of sprinted to adopt AI, and we built these habits around it, but actually we're still not using it to the capability and in the way that it was actually designed. And the more fluent the output, the more dangerous it actually is if you are not able to see past that kind of competent output. We are hardwired to trust things that seem coherent, that seem well written. And I noticed some names in the kind of attendee list. I know some of you will message me later and say, competent AI output? Yeah, well, but because it seems to talk to us in the way that we understand, we are hardwired to begin to trust it. And also, there's this kind of weird shame loop that is happening with AI use at the moment. So we're using it, but we're not stating that we're using it. We're using it and we're trusting it. But when something goes wrong, we don't know how to fix it. We don't know what to do next. So this is kind of where we're sat. And there's also obviously like the speed trap. So the whole reason that people use AI is to go faster. And verification feels like it defeats the point. It doesn't, realistically. Catching one significant error before it reaches a client saves more time than verification ever costs. Yeah. So this is kind of where we're sat. 77% of professionals now use AI weekly. That's great. But 64% of those humans are not testing the output. And 1 in 3 of those have used AI output in a client-facing document without checking it. So we're using it, but are we using it correctly? Are we powered with it? Are we empowered with the way that we should be using this? So these are the mistakes. These are the 5 things that we're going to go through today. People trust AI like it's Google. Not that you should always trust Google, but I hope you understand the comparison. Prompting is too vague. We're using the wrong kind of tool. There is no verification loop, and we have no audit trail. So let's start with the one that I think we all recognize. Yeah. So we have begun to trust AI outputs as though we are using it as a search engine, and they are not. And what the actual problem is classed as, and what the problem is this hallucination problem. So the thing that gets us here is fluency. This is the mistake and the trap we fall into. When something is written well, we assume it was thought through carefully, but that is a human trait, not a technology trait. And we do this in other instances too. But with AI, it's particularly dangerous because the fluency is dialed up, yeah? And it is actually completely disconnected from accuracy. Fluency and accuracy do not equate with this type of technology. AI is not looking things up. It is generating the statistically most likely next word based on everything it was trained on. So when it produces a statistic, a citation, or a case study, it is not recalling, yeah? It is generating what is the most plausible outcome. I have seen client-facing documents with completely fabricated citations, research papers that do not exist, statistics that were plausible but not real, case studies with companies that aren't real, and it's all written in such clean, confident prose, we don't question it. And the fix for this is actually a huge mindset shift. AI barreled into our world with no book. We had no playbook to run through and work through. And we're kind of now recognizing the mistakes that we've made and that fast adoption. And I think what we need to recognize is that every AI output is a first draft from a confident intern. Yeah. And the intern might do great first drafts, but we would never send that work out of the door without reading it. So why are we doing that with AI generated content? So there's a compounding problem here. And that's because within any AI task, it's multi-step. And what happens is the errors accumulate. So if the first output contains a false premise, and then we're like talking to it back and forth, we're building on a false promise. And then we build on it with our second prompt, and the second prompt output inherits the error, but amplifies it. So that's kind of one of the things. So people who use AI for complex multi-stage work or building AI agents, that kind of thing, need to build in verification points at each stage, not just at the end. Yeah. So don't just check the end piece. We have to check each individual process. We've also got this mirroring problem. So if we give it a prompt that has a wrong assumption or a wrong piece of data, AI will agree. It does not correct. Yeah. Because it is optimizing to be helpful. So which sometimes means validating what you said, even when we are wrong. So if you go in with the help me explain why X is true, but X is actually not true, we will get a beautifully compelling explanation of a false thing. Yeah. Because it is blowing smoke. It's our hype man. Yeah. We pay a subscription for something to talk back, not to create correct things. Yeah. We've also got a confidence calibration problem because AI does not ever say it is wrong or it is not sure. It says with the same level of assurance whether it is certain or it is guessing, and there's no hesitation signal. And that is by design, but it is also a significant risk for when we're not aware of it. Yeah. So has anyone had an AI output go wrong? Have you kind of asked it for something, got a load of beautiful citations, and then gone, should probably check those, and then realize they were all incorrect? Yeah. So it's just about actually understanding how we trust that kind of output. Because look at these beautiful, very confident wrong answers. So Google AI overview suggested adding glue to get cheese to stick to a pizza. And it actually turns out the source is an 11-year-old Reddit comment. Can you give me a fruit with 11 letters ending in O? Oh yeah, guanabano. It's not even a real fruit, but it's telling us that. So I understand that I've put these in obviously to get you to be like, oh yeah, that's really wrong. But actually, what if the wrong thing is much more subtle than it's suggesting cheese, like glue to get cheese to stick onto pizza? Yeah. What if it is so subtle that you don't even question it? Because maybe you have asked ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity for something that you're not quite sure of. So when you're getting this confident, fluent, wonderfully coherent piece of content back, where are you verifying it? At what stage are you verifying it? How are you talking to it? Yeah. It also, like I say, is biased. It's automatically biased to respond and to support. So because of that, we need to be double checking. Just because it sounds right in this instance does not mean it is right. And the second mistake is that we are prompting too vague. And I'm talk about this a lot, but the way that we prompt has to always adapt with the level of technology that we're at. So if you go back and look at the kind of sessions we started with in Oxford AI Exchange, the way that we prompted then for a lower model of ChatGPT does not reflect how we now have to use ChatGPT. Yeah. So we have to not only stay up to date with the technology, we have to then update our own skill processes to recognize that we have to interact differently. Now that's like double the work. Yeah. So it's also about how do we manage that and how do we understand? So do you want to know what the biggest prompt that goes into ChatGPT? Write me a LinkedIn post about. And then that is it. That is the most used prompt. Last year, it hasn't changed going into 2026. So if I asked it, write me a LinkedIn post about AI, the output would come back and it will be fine. Yeah, it would. It would be totally fine. It would have the kind of the cadence that we see all the time. It would have a rocket emoji, unless I've told it to not write me rocket emojis. I've probably put that in my settings by now. But this is because we are using AI for speed. We are asking it as though it understands us, and we are expecting it to have the knowledge and the expectation and the experience and the nuance that we do. We're asking it to replicate us rather than complete a task. And that is totally different. That is why we send it basic, really rubbish prompts, because we expect that it understands what is going on for us, and we're not understanding what is going on in the technology. So it's fine. It has a hook, 3 points. Oh, we've been spoiled. We've got five here. Got 5 bullet points and a call to action. Yeah, that's what it looks like for everybody. It's why our LinkedIn posts and our feeds are becoming incredibly boring, actually. It could have been written by anybody, for any company, in any industry, on any Tuesday. Yeah, and that's the problem, because it's the most statistical answer. And if we're not giving it enough, we're not explaining things enough, we're not giving the validation, the understanding, we will always get this as an output. It's just noise with punctuation. Yeah. And AI actually does not try to be interesting. It's not built for that. It's just trying to be correct and the most statistical output. And it is generating the most statistically average response to your input. So if your input is average, you're going to get average back every single time. The prompt is the brief, and that's the secret, really. So there's a framework that you can use, which is 5 things every time, no exceptions. So the first thing you need to do is to give it a race, like a role, a purpose, an end line, a finish line in a kind of marathon. So gives AI something to work towards, to run towards, to kind of exist within. So not just write a post. I want you to say things like, you're a marketing director who has spent 15 years working within B2B tech founders. We've got a sudden lens that we didn't have before. What we need to then do is give it an audience. Yeah. Tell it who is reading and what they actually care about, not professionals. Yeah. Founders who are skeptical of AI and have been burned by overpromised tools before. Again, forcing it to not give us the most statistical answer. We then need to give it a goal. So what does this output need to do? Are we asking it to inform, challenge, reassure, convert? Be specific about the reason you're creating that post in the first place, not just the format, such as LinkedIn post. We then have our format, our length, our structure, our tone. Do you want 1 punchy paragraph? Do you want 3? Should it always end with a question? It won't know. if we don't say. AI's whole view of the world is the data it has been trained upon and the response and input that we give. It can't see past that. And then we need to give it a constraint, because the things we want are wonderful, but the things that we don't want are just as important. And it's actually the most powerful in ensuring that you don't get a similar response to somebody else. So tell it what not to do. Avoid jargon. Do not use the word leverage. Do not give me a rocket emoji. Yeah, whatever you don't want, you have to tell it. No bullet points. Do not open with a question. Constraints force specificity in a way that positive instructions cannot. And remember, you can always log in. You can then go into your settings, and you can also force every time you prompt for it to go through a certain set of instructions too. So if you don't want rocket emojis, you don't want bullet points, you don't want the M dash, go and tell it. Yeah. And then it will always do that. So you don't have to always do this back and forth, realistically. And I think you must have heard this: garbage in, garbage out. And as I was searching this, the irony that all of these are AI generated is not lost on me, right? And it is the reality of this situation, because if we only allow AI to have the minimalist amount of understanding, the output that we will receive is the minimal version of that output. Yeah. And when I first started kind of working in the AI space, as the technology started to kind of become bigger, this was shared a lot in the kind of initial kind of lectures, masterminds, all these sessions. And obviously it's depicting the internet as a very large cactus, watering a smaller cactus with bad data. So the internet holds rubbish. We know it holds rubbish because when we search, we don't just go for the first thing and trust it as gospel, right? But that information is being fed into generative AI. So AI was not trained on a curated, verified, high quality data set. It was just trained on the biggest data set we had, and that is the internet. So this means it has inherited every bias, every conspiracy theory, every confidently stated falsehood, every out-of-date statistic, and every piece of content that was itself written by an AI earlier model. So the cactus is now watering itself. Yeah? So there is a term for this, and it's called kind of model collapse. And it's when AI generated content gets scraped back into training data for the next generation of models. And that quality degrades. It degrades over time. The output becomes more homogenized, more average, more detached from any sort of truth. And we are already seeing evidence of this. So when someone says AI told me, as if that kind of settles an argument for anybody, the honest response I want you to have is AI told you something that was statistically consistent with a very large sample of human-generated content, some of which was accurate, some of which was not. An increasingly intense proportion of that was written by a previous AI. So do you now trust your AI output as it stands? Yeah. The next thing I want to talk about, though, is the fact that we're using the wrong tool. We are probably, I'm going to 75% of the time using the wrong tool for the AI expected outcome that we want to achieve. And most people have one AI tool for everything. Yeah. ChatGPT, Claude, Copilot, Gemini. And it's not wrong exactly, but it's costing us. It's costing anybody who's doing that. And when we start to use AI for pretty much, like the same AI tool, for pretty much everything, we're getting the same problem in all of our workflows. We find something that works though, right? We learned how it thinks, we stick with it, and it's not wrong. Yeah. But the mistake is not having the right niche tool for the right niche output. You would not use a spreadsheet to write a proposal, and you would not use Word to build a financial model. So why are you asking ChatGPT to do things that ChatGPT is not good enough for? And the same logic applies here. If you are doing any research, you need sources you can actually verify. So we would automatically use Perplexity because it searches the web, it cites where things come from, and you can click through and check them. ChatGPT can also give you an answer. It will just give it to you with considerably more confidence and no receipts. It will never really be able to tell you where it got its data from. If you're working inside Microsoft 365 every day, Copilot's already there. It's already embedded. It has the context about where you work and the email thread you have access to. So using a separate tool for tasks Copilot could do directly is adding steps in for no reason. So I hope I'm kind of starting to make things tick in the fact that you need to build out a stack, not a one. And if you're generating images for anything commercial, the usage rights conversation is one you need to have. So are we using the right tool that allows us to use the right output in the right way? Yeah. And one thing I also want to talk about right here with this one is that every time we put content into a public AI tool, that content goes somewhere. The answer about where it goes depends on the tool, the subscription you pay, and whether you have changed any of your default settings. If you are putting client data, confidential strategy, or anything personally identifiable into a free consumer tool, we're training the platform, and then that data is accessible by somebody else. They only need to ask the right question for that data to rise out of the directory information and be shown to somebody else. And if you're also in a regulated industry, finance, legal, healthcare, education, there's also explicit rules about which AI tools are approved, not guidance, explicit rules. Yeah. And they are worth checking what they are before you find out the hard way. Now, if one tool was good enough to do everything, why are we beginning to see maps like this? This is a purely generative AI market map on the right here. And these tools are for consumers. These are for enterprise vertical, enterprise horizontal. These are kind of prosumers. And these are all purposely different to support different outputs and different use cases, even though they are all the same, like technology that lives underneath. They are adapted and work in different ways, and you have to prompt them differently, connect them to different things. If you look at the best AI 2025 market map, I don't actually agree with this one, but it was nice and pretty. If you look at the different selections of the kind of way that the AI tools are starting to be grouped, things like ChatGPT live as a general assistant. Do you trust a general assistant to create a beautiful portfolio deck? Probably not. Yeah. But you may kind of use a image mixed with a bit of an LLM, like OpenAI or Claude, to create something there. As you can see, understanding the reason that you're using AI linked to the output that you expect, linked to the use of that output, will drastically change the tool that you should be using to create that output. Because a lot of people tend to use the ones that are general assistants, so kind of Gemini, Copilot, DeepSeek, Claude, all these ones on this side, and ask them to do everything that other AI kind of generated platforms are actually good at. Yeah. Because I think we've also got quite excited the fact that we can pay one subscription to rule all. And that's not how technology works. Because if we had one platform that did everything greatly, wonderfully, and to an expert level, we would be paying a massive premium for that, not $30 a month. So we need to be considering that realistically, there is not one tool to rule all, even though there's this weird thing going on where everything looks the same. The next thing that I want to kind of showcase is that we have no verification loop in this at the moment. We're skipping it. We're not even questioning the output of our AI models. And this is the thing that I see all the time being skipped and not understood in our AI workflows. And because of that, we're having a massive problem. So most AI workflows go prompt, output, use. Yeah? We're not adding in our middle steps, which are verify and edit. And the checklist actually here that I've put on here for you, it's not an optional, it's not an extra, it's not a good to have. These are the minimum things that you should be verifying before anything AI assisted leaves your hands. And every time that we generate, we create, we talk about using AI kind of created content, we need to be going through this verification checklist. Did we verify any statistics, dates, or name sources independently? Did we actually check them? Did we find the primary source? Does the output match the brief? This sounds obvious, but AI has this massive tendency to drift, yeah, particularly in longer outputs, because it starts answering our question and then answers something slightly different towards the end. Yeah, it's like it loses interest realistically or gets distracted by something shiny. Is the tone right? AI default tone is just helpful and neutral. And that's often not the right tone for our audience. So we need to read it as the person who is going to receive it. Yeah? Are there any claims that you could not personally stand behind? If a client asked you to defend a specific claim in that output, could you? If the answer is no, that claim needs to go. Would your client be surprised to learn AI produced any part of this? If yes, that is worth reflecting on. Not because using technology or using AI assistance is wrong, but because the gap between what they expect and what was delivered is information. That gap is how we kind of move forward. Are there any hallucinated URLs, citations, or kind of quotes? Test them. Click the links, look at the papers, Google the quotes. So we end up in these kind of traps here. And one of them is the plausibility trap. And AI errors are often not obviously wrong. They're often subtly wrong. So that is a problem. And the verification challenge is not catching big errors. It is catching sophisticated inaccuracies. We also get stuck in the speed trap. The whole point of this technology, realistically, at our level of use, is to enhance speed and to get things done. And verification feels like an extra step. So we're kind of got this like sunken cost fallacy about the fact that we don't want to spend too much time on the outputs. There is also, I want to kind of note, a tool-specific error profile. Now, as I said, let's go back to it, actually. As I said here, there are many tools that do many different things. But what that means is that there are many different ways that those different tools could create different types of inaccuracies. So different AI tools make different types of mistakes. If you are using a tool regularly, you should have a working understanding of where its error rate is the highest. For some tools, it is dates and times. For others, it is specific domain knowledge. So we need to know our tool's failure models. And if we're talking to it in a communication style that we expect, as with humans, why aren't we checking it? Why aren't we following the normal communication cycle and just trusting that we can go from prompt to output to publish or use? Where is that disconnect coming, and where is that learned behavior from? And that is something that we really need to kind of understand. The next one is that we're not leaving any audit trail currently at the moment. And this is one that nobody thinks about until we're sat in a difficult kind of conversation with a client or a potential lawyer. And realistically, AI audit trails matter for 3 reasons: copyright, data privacy, and liability. If we put the wrong information in, that is a data handling issue. If AI generated something that turned out to be wrong or harmful, who was responsible? And we need to start simple, though. I don't want you to go away like thinking you need to do 10,000 more things. I just want you to have a document that's like, I created this with AI, I use this tool. And it just means that taking 30 seconds could protect you in the long run, realistically. And I almost didn't add in this slide because every time I run a session like this, I kind of debate whether to include it. Because on the surface, it looks like I'm about to tell you AI is bad and you should use it less. That is actually not what I'm saying when I'm going through these AI errors. Because when we overcome these errors, this technology is truly wonderful. I have seen it do really great, magical things. I've built wonderful things with it. But what we're not doing is understanding how it works and assigning the right tasks to the right tool. And then we're not talking to it properly. So as you can see, it kind of creates a cycle of misuse for this technology, which leaves us feeling a little deflated. The output isn't what we want. We're creating tasks to edit, to reprompt, and it just doesn't need to be like that. And the best AI users I have ever worked with, they have one thing in common. And that is that we treat anything AI powered as a thinking partner, not a thinking replacement. Yeah. They use it to move faster on the parts of a task that do not require their specific expertise. But they show up to every output with their own judgment, their own content, and their own professional experience. That we're still staying in the work. Yeah, we're not leaving it to work for us. And what happens is when we hand over our thinking and we hand over our experience and our competence, the output becomes average. It's not bad. That'd be the wrong word for me to use, but it is average because AI is drawing on everything it was trained on, which is essentially a very large sample of how everyone thinks about everything. Yeah. There is no version in that data of your 15 years in this industry in that output. There is no version of your specific client relationship or the thing that happened in that meeting last Tuesday that changes how this piece of work needs to land. That's our information and the way that we have to feed that in and the way that we need to work with these systems. And AI cannot access that unless we put it in. We are the vessels for that understanding. We are the differentiator because the prompt is where your thinking lives, where we're doing it for a reason, right? The moment that we stop bringing our thinking to the prompt, we stop being the differentiator. So I want you to really think and recognize that AI makes your ideas faster. It does not make them better by default. The better is still ours to add. I also wanted to just take a moment to talk about skill atrophy. I heard a terrifying statistic that many students in high school cannot read a traditional clock. Why do we think that is? Why do you think that many high school students can now not read a traditional clock? Yeah, phones. And the emphasis on importance of that. So when they're sat in an exam, I think it was like a 97% of the students in an English exam could not understand when their exam finished. That's terrifying. And skill atrophy is documented. Yeah, we see it. And there's a huge kind of body of research on automation and cognitive de-skilling that predates AI by decades. But when we kind of repeatedly use a tool to do something without engaging with the content, your own capability in that area quietly degrades. Yeah, it does not happen overnight, but it is worth being deliberate about what skills you want to maintain and what tasks you are generally happy to hand off permanently. The homogenization problem is coming, and most people have not felt it yet, but you will start to see it in things like AI-generated posters, for example. So when everyone is using the same 3 tools with broadly similar prompts, the output starts to converge. So there was a beautiful study done about 10 really global, massive brands who all used AI to create, it was a skincare thing. Nobody could tell the difference between who the brand was, and the things we would normally associate with like Apple and things like that had been lost in this generative output. And the people who stand out in that environment are the ones who bring a genuinely distinct perspective to both the brief and the output. And that requires thinking, and you cannot prompt your way to a point of view, is something I say quite a lot. So I think another thing that you can have a look at, I'll get the college to send this out to you, is there's a Harvard Business School research that they found that AI raises the floor significantly. So people who were previously weaker performers improve a lot, but it lowers the ceiling for top performers whose best work becomes less distinctive when it is routed through the same model as everyone else. So the practical implementation or the implication of that is knowing which category a given task falls into. Some things you can hand over to AI and move fast on, but when we need to actually stay in the work and use AI as a sounding board rather than, say, a ghostwriter, we need to understand the difference between those two. So there are 5 mistakes that we've gone through today. And here are basically the 5 fixes. Very, very briefly, the 5 fixes, much more condensed than I've kind of spoken through every slide. And none of them require a new tool. Today is not about me wowing you with a new thing for you to try, or a process to overhaul, a new subscription to kind of purchase. All of these fixes are purely based on a decision to do something differently. Yeah. So we need to verify every output before it goes anywhere, not a skim, not a read. We need to look at understanding the why, the bones of why that was created. We need to prompt like we are writing an actual brief, role, that kind of giving it a race, giving it a way to move forward, a finish line, a reason for it doing that role. Yeah. And we're going to give it an audience, a format, and a constraint every single time. Before we open our default tool, before we kind of go, hey, ChatGPT, how should Monday going? I want you to spend just 2-3 seconds going, is it actually the right tool for this task? We then need to build the verification loop into the workflow so it is not optional. And it happens before the output leaves your hands every time, not just when something feels off. And then record it. Just one line, the tool, roughly what you said to it, what changed, 30 seconds, Done. Yeah. So that is it. 5 habits. The gap between the people getting generally useful output from an AI kind of process and the people just getting polished noise. And I just want you to think about something. It's the last theory I promise I will talk about today. And it's the implementation intention theory. And this is where the finding is consistent across decades of studies. So people who attach a new behavior to a specific trigger follow through at significantly higher rates. So every time that you open a kind of AI tool to do something, I want you to add a new behavior to that moment so you're getting a better outcome. So I want you to kind of think today, whenever you kind of have this process, whenever I generate an AI output that is going anywhere external, I will run through the verification checklist before I close the tab. That's an example of you adding that new behavior to your new process. Yeah. And the more specific the trigger, so when you kind of go into ChatGPT, the more likely you're going to kind of do that new behavior. So I don't want you to do a new system. I don't want you to overhaul anything. I don't want you to promise yourself that you become a better AI user from this point forward. What I want you to do is the next time an AI output is about to leave your hands, stop, read it properly, check it against the brief, verify anything that could be wrong. That is a habit in itself. And the research on kind of all of this habit and use and things like that, it's really overwhelming. So to boil it down into a very easy way to like move forward is that we cannot stop thinking. Our AI tool is a supporter, not a replacement. Yeah. And we have to treat it like we are checking its output. Yeah. So what's next? We've got 2 really great sessions coming up. One is called Is ChatGPT Dead? And also then we've got using generative AI to create high impact video after that. And make sure that you are looking out for your digital badge for your LinkedIn. A lot of people forget that they come in after the session. So you need to check your email for those. So has anyone got any questions for me? Emma, that was excellent, if not slightly terrifying. Well, I hope I haven't given you an existential crisis about the whole situation. And I'm always here if you've got any questions after this session too, of course. Yeah, it's not a problem, Ingrid.
Yeah, thanks, Robyn. That was pretty good. And yeah, no, I completely agree as well. Some of those stats, I'm just like, I feel like you have kind of heard about it, but then
yeah, the one that's wild to me is it's like how I can't remember this one. Yeah, 64% of people have never checked their AI output. I'm like, what? Like, that's now going into the world and being used as real, and then yeah. So
and
yeah.
then it just comes back around. Yeah, no, that's insane.
Yeah, and then 1 in 3 people have never checked their AI output in a client-facing documents. I'm like,
Just
yeesh.
yeah,
That's wild.
But well, this is why these sessions are continuously incredibly useful, very informative, and yeah, thank you. If anyone else have any questions, anyone got any questions?
Oh yeah, that's wonderful, Celine. If you've got any questions or you want to see an example of one, you can always find me on LinkedIn and I can pop some over to you.
Okay, perfect. But I think that's everything for today. Thank you so much, Robyn. Again, really insightful, and yeah, I might agree with Emma there a little bit. But thanks so much for joining, everyone. We hope you enjoyed it and found it really interesting and intriguing, and just seeing all the facts again. And yeah, join us next time again. I think the dates, you said the next one will be the 13th.
Yes, it's 2 weeks.
In 2 weeks. Yeah, perfect. 13th of July. And yeah, I hope to hear from some of you soon. Hope to hear from some of you soon. Hope to see some of you again soon. And yeah, Robyn, thank you so much.
It's not a problem. I'm so glad it's not 40 million degrees today for us to sit through this. So,
That's true. I
yeah.
actually don't mind it, but it's still a little bit cold now. I don't know. I'm just kind of like, well,
I was happy I got to put a jumper on, not like have to sit here surrounded by like 20 fans to exist
I know.
today.
I know, but that's the thing with the UK here. This seasons are so dramatic,
Yeah,
so dramatic. Oh my gosh.
that's a good word for it, actually.
Yeah, because it's just such a change. Obviously, I was kind of raised in like sub-Saharan Africa and Zimbabwe, and like then no seasons there. So it's
Hmm.
just like such a change to me. I come back and I'm
Yeah.
like, "Oh, what do you mean? It's gonna be thunderstorms next week when it was literally just
Why? Yeah.
exactly. I'm like, guys, just pick a season, stick with it. Let's have more modular season-based changes. But anyway, yeah, thank you so much, and I'll
Have a
see
really good
you.
week.
Yeah, have a good